Mauritius, marketed as paradise. White beaches, palm trees, promises of safety and profit. But like the Venus flytrap, Dionea muscipula, it lures its prey with sweet nectar, only to snap shut. In this film, we show how both locals and foreigners fall into the same legal traps. Different stories, same ending. Their homes and investments end up sold off in the very same auctions. Mauritius. Just say the name. It sounds less like a country and more like a high-end spa treatment. Pristine beaches, turquoise lagoons, the kind of relaxed atmosphere that makes you want to trade your business suit for a pair of shorts you'll immediately regret buying. It's aggressively marketed as a paradise on earth, a stable, business-friendly haven in the Indian Ocean, a place where you can park your money, build your dream home, and live out your days sipping on a drink with a tiny, utterly unnecessary umbrella in it. And for a while, it really does feel that way. The sun is warm, the people are welcoming, and the investment opportunities seem as abundant as the sugarcane fields. But here's the thing about things that seem too good to be true. They usually are. Beneath the glossy brochures and the 5-star TripAdvisor reviews, there's a darker truth. Mauritius, for all its beauty, operates a bit like a Venus flytrap. Yes, that's right, the carnivorous plant. Let's start at home, with the people who know the island best, the Mauritians themselves. You might think that being a citizen would offer some protection. You would be wrong, horribly, tragically wrong. Meet a uniquely Mauritian horror story called the Sale by Levy. It sounds like a boring legal term you'd skim past in a contract, but in reality, it's a legal guillotine hanging over the head of every property owner on the island. In simple terms, it's a procedure for debt collection where a creditor can seize and auction off your property. And when I say auction, I don't mean a glamorous affair at Sotheby's. I mean a fire sale on the courthouse steps. Here's how this little monster works. Let's say you owe someone money. It could be a bank. It could be a business partner. It could even be a private individual. If you can't pay, they can go to a judge and get an order to seize your property. Now, you'd think there would be safeguards. You'd think the debt would have to be substantial. You'd think the court would ensure the sale price is fair. But this is Mauritius, where logic goes to die. The debt can be shockingly small, sometimes a fraction of the property's value. And the property is then auctioned off, often for a pittance, to the first person who shows up with cash. This process is a predator's dream. It's a fast track to ruin. Imagine owning a family home worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Imagine a home that has been in your family for generations. Then a dispute over a relatively minor debt, say a few $1,000s, spirals out of control. Before you know it, a notice is slapped on your door, your home. Now that you understand the weapon, the sale by Levy, let me introduce you to the people who wield it. Enter Jagannada Reddi Hari Kistna, a businessman who turned others' misery into profit. As L'Express reported, Reddi learned in advance whose homes were about to be auctioned. He approached desperate families pretending to help. Instead, he bought their homes through proxies and demanded huge sums to give them back. Victims paid hundreds of thousands of rupees, but never got their houses. Some even worked for him unpaid, hoping to repay their own debt. Reddy's scheme went on for years before ICAC finally arrested him for money laundering. But even today, he is involved in auction schemes, having his old connections in closed cabinets. It often starts with a small, friendly loan. Maybe a family needs cash for a medical emergency or a small business repair. The predator swoops in, offering easy money with no questions asked. The terms are buried in confusing paperwork, often with astronomical interest rates and hidden fees. The borrower, desperate and trusting, signs on the dotted line. They think they've found a savior, but they've just invited a vampire into their home. The goal was never to get the loan repaid. The goal, from the very beginning, was to get the property. Once the trap is set, the scammer waits. They might let the interest accumulate, a small debt ballooning into an impossibly large one. Or they might find a tiny technicality, a late payment of a single day, to trigger default. At that point, they stop being friendly. They unleash the sale by Levy. They march to court, armed with the signed contract, and the legal machinery grinds into motion. The family, often with little understanding of the law and no money for a lawyer, is completely outmatched. If you think this is just a local problem, think again. The Venus flytrap has an international appetite. Let's talk about Berth Milton. Yes, that Berth Milton, the Swedish billionaire behind the adult entertainment empire Private Media Group. In the early 2000s, he saw what so many others saw in Mauritius, a beautiful, stable place to invest. He poured an estimated 100 million euros into the country, buying up land, planning luxury developments, being the kind of high-roller investor that countries drool over. He was the big, juicy fly the island had been waiting for. For a while, everything was perfect. He was welcomed with open arms. Government officials smiled for photos. The projects moved forward. Milton was living the Mauritian dream. But then, things started to go wrong. Very wrong. He claims he was targeted by a sophisticated network of what he calls white-collar criminals. Business partners turned against him. Legal challenges materialized out of thin air. He found himself ensnared in an endless series of lawsuits, facing accusations of fraud corruption that he vehemently denies. The paradise he had invested in was quickly turning into a legal hell. Milton's case is a masterclass in how to dismantle a foreign investor. He alleges that his local partners systematically sabotaged his companies from within, using fraudulent documents, transfer assets, dilute his control. He claims they exploited the legal system, filing dozens of frivolous lawsuits to bleed him dry financially and emotionally. The man who had once been celebrated as a visionary investor was now being painted as a villain. The government, which had once courted him, now seemed to be working against him. His assets were frozen. His companies were pushed into receivership. His dream of a Mauritian empire crumbled into dust. Section 5. The law is not on your side. The Non-Citizens Property Restriction Act. Now, you might be asking yourself, how is this even possible? Don't foreign investors have rights? Well, let's talk about a piece of legislation that sounds about as welcoming as a barbed wire fence, the Non-Citizens Property Restriction Act. This law is basically the gatekeeper of all property ownership for foreigners in Mauritius. In essence, it says that if you are not a Mauritian citizen, you cannot hold, purchase, acquire property without the express permission of the Prime Minister's office. And this isn't just a rubber stamp, it's actually a powerful lever of control. Your right to own property is not really a right at all. It's a privilege that can be granted and, more importantly, revoked. This act creates a fundamental power imbalance from day one. Every foreign investor is, in effect, a guest in the country, and their welcome can be rescinded at any time. The permission to buy property is often tied to specific investment schemes or residency permits. If something goes wrong with that permit, like if a business partner dispute arises or if the government changes its mind, your legal basis for owning that property can dissolve like sugar in hot tea. Suddenly, you're left holding a deed to a house you're no longer legally allowed to own. It's a real sword of Damocles hanging over every expat's head. Think about the implications here. You spend millions on a villa, you furnish it, you make it your home. Then, due to a bureaucratic whim or a falling out with a local associate who has the ear of a government official, your permission to own is questioned. The Non-Citizens Property Restriction Act can be weaponized. It can be used to pressure investors in disputes, to force them into unfavorable settlements, or to simply kick them out and free up their property. If the sale by levy is the local guillotine and the Property Restriction Act is the foreigner's cage, then the Financial Crimes Commission, or FCC, is the island's all-seeing eye. And it's an eye that winks. A lot. Established to fight money laundering and financial crime, a noble goal, at least on paper, the FCC has been granted extraordinary powers. Specifically, it has the power to issue an attachment order, which allows it to freeze a person's assets. All of them. Bank accounts, cars, houses, you name it. And here's the truly terrifying part. It can do this without a criminal conviction. Let me repeat that, because it's important. The FCC can seize everything you own based on reasonable suspicion. You don't have to be found guilty in a court of law. You don't even have to be formally charged with a crime. All it takes is for the commission to have reasonable suspicion that your assets might be the proceeds of a crime. This guilty until proven innocent approach completely upends the principles of justice. Your life can be financially paralyzed on the whim of a bureaucrat. You are left with no access to your money, unable to pay your bills, your mortgage, or even your lawyers to fight the seizure itself. Unimaginable? Just read the Financial Crimes Commission Act 2023. Section 60, 61, 62, 64, and 88(6). A yourself, and you will be shocked by the sophisticated wording that can deprive any person of freedom and property without trial or due process. Link below this video. For a few years, there was a glimmer of hope for foreigners. It was called the Premium Visa, launched during the pandemic, a brilliant marketing move. It offered a 1-year renewable permit for non-citizens to come and live in Mauritius, to work remotely, and, of course, to spend their money. Many saw it as a pathway to a permanent life on the island. They sold their homes back home. They moved their families. They bought property tied to long-term residency prospects. They were told this was the new, open, welcoming Mauritius. Then, in early 2025, the music stopped. Quietly, without fanfare, the government began reversing its policy. Renewal applications that had been near formalities started getting denied. The denials arrived with no clear reasons. One day, you were a welcome expat contributing to the economy. The next, you were an overstayer with a letter telling you to pack your bags. The dream turned into a frantic scramble. The rules had changed mid-play. The impact was immediate and catastrophic. Property rights were often contingent on legal residency. With visas denied, the legal ground beneath them crumbled. They were now in breach of the Non-Citizens Property Restriction Act. They owned homes they were no longer legally permitted to own, and they were no longer legally permitted to be in the country. They were trapped. Selling a multi-million-dollar property on short notice is next to impossible. This silent, bureaucratic reversal was the Venus flytrap's most subtle move yet. No public fight, no dramatic court case, just a quiet administrative decision that left hundreds of families helpless. They were forced into fire sales at massive losses, or worse, they abandoned properties, opening the door to seizure. The 2025 Premium Visa reversal was a masterstroke of dispossession. A reminder, in Mauritius, the welcome mat can be pulled out from under you. Any investment you make may be built on quicksand. By now, you should see the pattern. A local family, a Swedish billionaire, an expat digital nomad. They seem from different worlds, but in Mauritius, they end up at the auction block. Mechanisms differ. Outcome is identical. Property is taken legally and systematically, sold for a fraction of its value. A conveyor belt of loss, powered by a predatory legal framework and a government that looks the other way or takes part. Let's connect the dots. Local family. Trapped by a predatory loan, sold via sale by Levy, left with nothing. Berth Milton. Years of legal warfare and corporate sabotage, assets stripped until his empire is hollow, left with nothing. Expat family, lured by the Premium Visa, buys dream home, residency revoked, forced into sale, or face seizure under the Non-Citizens Property Restriction Act. They too are left with nothing. Same legal DNA runs through these stories. It's an interconnected trap. So, what is the takeaway from our little trip to paradise? It's that the postcard is a lie. To victims of these practices, we want to hear your stories. Write to the email in the video description. The more voices come forward, the harder it will be for these schemes to remain hidden.